and strange get engineered away. It's gonna be the future.
Bang!
Never seen it quite so clear. When my heart is breaking, I can close my eyes. It's already here.
Welcome to episode 2 of FutureBANG, the podcast where we discuss, well, the drink noises and the satisfied noises. Both things. Also, we discuss the future, obviously.
Of everything.
The future of everything. Last episode 1, we did. We recorded that a long time ago. What did we talk about? Hyperloop, which is like a near future technology. Today, we're going to go to the opposite end of the FutureBANG spectrum, and well, not necessarily the FutureBANG spectrum, because it's not like they're both about travel, but this one is far, far in the future.
Yeah, Hyperloop is, as like we talked about, they're working on it right now. It's something that you could see a prototype of in a few years if everything goes well. What we're going to talk about today, not going to happen for a little while. No, not.
Well, yeah, probably not. It's a little more down the science fiction-y end of things, but still not totally fantasy. It's realistic, and hopefully it'll happen one day.
Do you think they can guess what we're going to talk about?
Let's see. Write in if you have guessed by this point what we're going to talk about. My name is Jesse.
My name's Ian.
And we're your hosts for FutureBANG. So, we're going to be talking today about interstellar travel.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say that this is essentially kind of a part 1 of interstellar travel, which could go on for many, many parts, because I don't think you can reasonably cover interstellar travel in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. So we're going to talk about stuff here, and we will maybe bring it up again, and there's so many things related to interstellar travel. We will talk about those over the course of this show.
Okay. So interstellar travel is simply traveling.
It's a movie.
It is it's a great movie.
Nolan. It's got Matthew McConaughey in it.
Yeah, and it broke some scientific ground. Actually, should we talk about Interstellar the movie?
Yeah, let's start there.
Because there was some cool stuff in that. They
got scientific papers out of it.
They did.
Yeah.
They had their science advisor was Kip Thorne, who has written books and papers and stuff with Hawking. He's a black hole expert. He's like one of the biggest black hole guys in the world. And he gave the graphics team on Interstellar the equations that physicists use they use these equations to kind of calculate like what happens to matter going into a black hole, what happens to light that's near a black hole, and these equations sort of tell you the behavior of black holes. But then the graphics people, the visual artists, put those equations into a massive simulation, and what comes out is completely based on those equations. Nobody drew the black hole in Interstellar. It's math based.
Yeah.
And apparently, according to black hole experts, what you see in Interstellar for the black hole is the closest, the most accurate representation visually of what a black hole looks like. And that's mind blowing.
Do you want to know what my favorite thing in that movie was?
Yes.
I like the wormhole.
Yes.
Being portrayed as a sphere as opposed to a portal.
They did a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned the wormhole, and the wormhole was sort of what made the whole movie work.
Yeah.
Because they were traveling interstellar, but they used a shortcut to get there. The wormhole, of course, is a hole through space-time, so you can sort of jump from one end to the other. And the way they describe it in the movie, and the way that it's described by scientists talking to non-scientists often, is by taking a piece of paper, and you hold the full piece of paper out, you draw a line from one end to the other. You say you want to get from point A to point B. We usually think of the shortest distance as a straight line. And if those 2 points are far apart, it's a long distance to travel.
Yeah.
But if you can fold the paper, then you can bring points A and B right next to each other and just do a quick little hop. And it sort of feels like a cheat on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking in this 2-dimensional world of the paper, but then if you fold it through the 3rd dimension, those points can be right next to each other. And they say you can basically do that with 3-dimensional space. The problem is that you need the energy of the entire universe all at once in order to do it on a large scale.
Yeah.
But theoretically, in science fiction, you can have this wormhole that allows you to jump instantly from one place to another, even if they're across the universe from each other.
Which also, to some extent, counts as time travel?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that.
Are we?
In the Interstellar, I think so. In the rest of the podcast, we'll talk a little bit about Not exactly time travel, but the way that time works over extremely large distances and fast speeds.
Mine's not going to involve that at all. Mine's going in a completely different direction. So we're going to get a couple.
Perfect.
We're different directions. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well, this is fun for both of us. It's going to be a discovery.
Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about jumping through wormholes. We're going to talk about actually covering the distance through space. That's my impression, at least. Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah. Tell me about traveling in space.
Okay, so space is...
First off, can I just say, is it Voyager?
What is what Voyager?
Voyager.
Star Trek?
No, Voyager, like the...
Oh,
Voyager,
yes!
Yeah.
Yes!
Okay, so Voyager has left our solar system. Does that count? Well,
yes.
It's almost.
Like, put an asterisk next to it, but yes.
So that would be the first man-made object to achieve interstellar.
Yes, there's two Voyager spacecrafts, Voyager 1 and 2, and they're at both slightly different distances, but they're pretty much at the same distance away from the Earth. And there are many different points that you could say are like the barrier to the solar system, but it's not like there's no one point where you go, well, now we're in the solar system, now we're out of the solar system. But for all intents and purposes, it's totally fair to say those are the first objects out of the solar system.
Yeah.
So, yes.
So we did it.
We did it.
Humanity has left the solar system. We're done.
Well, leaving the solar system... Okay, so this is interesting. The definition of interstellar travel, does it just mean leaving a solar system? Or does it mean you have to go from one solar system to another? Because I think of interstellar as being between stars. And right now, Voyager 1 and 2 are still way closer to the sun than they are to any other star.
Yeah, but I think it's just about leaving the solar system. I mean, that's traveling in interstellar space.
That's true. Yep. So okay, that's true.
I'd say that. But
okay.
But I mean, yeah, when people talk about interstellar travel, I think they mean going to another star, another planet, another something.
Yeah.
Another solar system.
Yeah. I'm also going to suggest that it maybe doesn't count as humanity leaving the solar system or doing interstellar travel because there are no humans aboard.
Yeah, okay, we've sent something.
But we sent radio signals way before Voyager 1 and 2 went. So what, like, again, it's hard to draw the line. Like, is it human influence?
Physical object that we had, that we built.
Yes.
That we had to launch.
Yes.
That used our early rocket systems to leave the planet. I mean, the radio signals were by accident, really.
The first one's totally, yeah.
That was just,
Yeah, that's true. So, yes, if you mean an object that is deliberately built and constructed to travel great distances beyond our solar system, we've achieved that. We did it.
We did it.
High five.
Well, that's the episode. I hope you enjoyed it.
There's still more to go, because it would be cool for people to make that travel.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about.
So space is really, really big.
Yeah.
Like,
how big is it? How big is it? How big did they say it is? How many light years?
A light year is the distance that light can travel in a year.
Yeah.
And this is where time travel is going to come into it, because light, of course, has a speed. I mean, everyone listening to this, I'm sure, has heard of the speed of light before, which is extremely fast, but it's not extremely fast compared to the distances of not even the universe, but just the distances between stars. So it takes years for light to get from one place to another if you are looking at the light from a place like the Earth.
Yeah.
So if you're not moving very fast, it appears that light takes about 4 years to get from us to the nearest star and tens of thousands of years to get to other stars in the galaxy. But if you're traveling very fast, you experience time in a different way. Mm-hmm. So to the light beam, no time passes at all. Okay. No matter how far the light beam is moving, if it's moving from one end of a table to the other end of the table, it's instantaneous to the light beam. And if it's moving from Earth to the other side of the galaxy, it's instantaneous to the light beam. Which means that if you're in a spaceship and you're traveling at the speed of light, you would experience very little time passing. But while you're making that trip on Earth, people would, like, thousands and thousands of years could go by. Which is sort of the basis of Planet of the Apes, where the people leave Earth and they travel very fast, and then they get to the Planet of the Apes, but it's actually Earth thousands of years in the future, because they've only passed a few days, a few weeks, a few months, whatever it is in their journey. But many, like ages passed on Earth, which is part of interstellar travel, is that you're going to be separated in time as well as in space. It also means that if you want to send a message from the Earth to your ship that's traveling to another star, you can't Skype back and forth. You're going to have a delay of years between the message that you send and the reply you get back. So there are two ways to do interstellar travel, or like two extremes, and you have to choose somewhere between them. One is to go very, very fast, and then you can have somebody leave the Earth on a mission and arrive at their destination and fulfill the mission and, hey, potentially come back. But since they're moving very, very quickly and experiencing time very differently, when they come back, it'll be a very different world. So chances are, I think, if you're going interstellar, you're probably going on a one-way trip. Anyway, one way is to go extremely quickly, close to the speed of light, and the same people who leave will arrive. Going very quickly is extremely difficult to do. It takes an incredible amount of energy, and things get weird. We have no idea how to do that yet. None of our technology even goes 1% the speed of light, so that doesn't look likely. The other possibility is to go slowly, and by slowly I still mean like super fast compared to, we're not driving a car down the highway. We're still going at rocket speeds, but slow compared to the speed of light. And that means that it's going to take more than a lifetime to get to your destination. So you end up with a huge ship with a whole colony on it. And
so you need a generational ship.
Exactly.
So family, like you put on like 10,000 people or whatever, however big. And over the course of their trip, which will be
thousands of years.
You basically have multiple generations of people. They have kids. Those kids have kids. And eventually down the road, it's like the Pilgrims.
Yes, but even more like it's not even like
30 years, one family across the country. There you go.
Yeah, right. You would still have like old people that remembered leaving as children, even if slow distance across the Earth. However, people have migrated. But in this, it would be like ancient history. Like, imagine if the Romans had left on a trip and they'd been trekking and now we're just arriving. That's a little crazy. Another way to deal with that is to freeze yourself, suspended animation, somehow go to long-term sleep and then wake up. Or you could send eggs and sperm or fertilized eggs or something like that in some kind of cryogenic thing. Send them in an incubator so when the ship arrives, then like robots can raise a crew.
That's what they did in Interstellar. That was a plan.
That's part of the exactly. So that's definitely part of it.
Spoiler alert. I'm sorry, guys. Spoiler alert. This is coming late.
They've had time to see it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it,
it's not even that much of a. That's part of the premise.
Okay, forget it. Cancel the spoiler alert.
No spoilers.
Okay, well, when you were saying that it would take a tremendous amount of energy to even get to like 1% of light speed.
Yes.
Which, who knows? Was it Project Orion?
Yes.
That wanted to use nukes?
Yes.
And had the potential to get up to 10% of the speed of light?
I don't know the details on that, but that potentially yes.
Okay.
That's such an amazing thing. That's like a perfectly like the 1950s Age of Tomorrow. Let's think big and screw the consequences kind of.
And it's also like we have these bombs that kill people, but instead of killing people, we're going to send ourselves into space.
It's just turning the dials of what can we do with technology, turn them to 11. They're not thinking small at all. They just go, well, okay, a big source of energy is nuclear bombs. So what if we took like 200,000 nuclear bombs and used that energy to launch a spaceship? So, okay, well, that's going to blow up our spaceship. Okay, well, let's make a spaceship the size of a city. And let's have like a plate in the back that's meters thick of solid steel. Like, we're not going to, even nukes aren't going to get through this big plate. And we put it on big, huge shock absorbers behind the ship. So we just dump nuke after nuke, hundreds of nuclear bombs out of the back of the ship and just have them explode. And part of that explosion is going to push on this big pressure plate, which is going to push our city-sized ship to 10% the speed of light. Like, that takes some balls to even say that.
Well, of course, and the thing I remember is people very quickly got scared because the idea of...
It's scary.
Well, the idea of sending nukes up into space and like, what if a nuke explodes? Like, what if the ship explodes? What if the nuke explodes in the atmosphere? And what? And
that's why...
And hippies were like, no nukes, we don't like nukes. And it's like, well, you don't like science, so... Damn hippies.
Yeah, well, I mean, potentially, you could carefully take everything, like, you don't even have to make the nuke. You take the ingredients to make the nukes off of the Earth, put them on the moon, build the nukes on the moon, build the whole thing, everything on the moon, and then the moon is where you launch from, and if everything goes wrong, you got a new crater on the moon.
Yeah.
So we could do that. I like that, the Project Orion thing. And then you could have, I mean, that was, again, the numbers, the details, look it up. But let's say thousands of people on this ship.
Yeah.
And that's enough for a population that can sustain itself.
That could get to, was it Alpha Centauri?
Yeah, that's the closest star.
I think I remember reading that it would take 40 years.
Wow.
At
10% speed of light, that makes sense. Yeah.
That's easily, you send a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Yeah. So that's somewhere in between the very fast
kids
and
so
the very
that
long.
when they get there, they can reproduce. I mean, if there's anything at Alpha Centauri, any planets that would be good. I don't know if there are. But.
Yeah, but as a basis, like that's the minimum to make it truly interstellar from one star system to another. Now, if you wanted to go farther, it's just going to take you longer. But when you're going 10% the speed of light, now it becomes a feasible thing. So let's start talking about, okay, so on a ship like that, let's say you're going to a star system with a high likelihood of having an Earth-like planet, which is probably not Alpha. So that would be too lucky if the closest star had a good candidate. Maybe it does. But let's assume that we're going farther.
Yeah.
And we're trying to colonize the galaxy. Yeah. We're sending a ship out for a very long trip that's going to take multiple generations. Imagine that you're born in one of those generations. Yeah. What's your life going to be like?
You will live your entire life on a spaceship.
Yeah.
Having never known a planet. Having never known anything. I mean, it's essentially like living on Earth.
That's true.
I mean, spaceship Earth.
Exactly.
There you go. It's you would be in this one place. You would only know the spaceship.
Yeah.
And then you would die, and it'd be weird though because you would know that you're coming from Earth.
Yes.
And you know that you're going to a planet, but you know that you'd never reach it.
Yes.
Which would be, I don't know.
In a lot of ways, it is like Earth though, because whatever projects we're working on, if you're really thinking big picture, we're not going to see the end of our projects unless you are.
That's true.
I mean, I don't want to say small-minded, but unless your goals in life, like your big picture goals, the things that your purpose for living, unless those things are really achievable. I mean, I think if you really drill down to it, almost everyone would come up with a grander goal than themselves. I don't know if it's fundamental to humanity, but it's certainly close to universal that people want to work on projects that are larger than themselves, or they want to believe that they're working towards some purpose that goes beyond their own life.
Yeah.
That's a big part of what gives life meaning.
I think everybody wants to see the end of that project. Like I think everyone.
Oh, totally.
I mean, I think everyone starts out on a project hoping they can see the end of it.
Yeah.
But hopefully they're choosing a project where it's like, well, I may not see the end of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many people started in the 50s thinking like, well, we're gonna be off of Earth fairly quickly. This might happen, and then
I guess when
the
you're
moon
on Earth,
came so fast. The moon was like, well, we're at the moon.
Yeah,
we're gonna be at Mars in like 10 years.
We're still not there. I guess on Earth, your big picture projects, your things like life goals or the things that give your life meaning beyond yourself, they're pretty vague, and your actual concrete goals do tend to be achievable within a lifetime. And also, on Earth, you kind of get to choose what you want, whether that's working towards the flourishing of humanity or working towards saving endangered species, or your goal is to experience the beauty of nature or to build the grandest cities, and whatever it is, you're kind of vague. And you've got specific achievable endpoints all along the way. But on the generation ship that's going from one star to another, the goals are pretty concrete, and you're pretty definitely not going to see them. You'd have small, like you could further the mission, but really you're just kind of marking time.
That's the thing. You would grow up, you would live your entire life knowing that you're on this project, that you're a part of it, but that you didn't see
it's been assigned to you. You didn't get to choose the meaning of your own life.
And you won't see the end. You know that you won't, because you'll know how quickly you're going to get there. You'll have a date. You'll be like, well, we should get there approximately within this couple of years, like in 24, 18 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you'll just know, like, I will not live that long.
Yeah.
But, my job is to reproduce and keep the species going on here until we get there. I don't know. I personally would want to do fast because I'd want to get there. That's just me. I want to get there.
Yeah.
I don't want to start a trip being like, well, bye Earth, and
Yeah.
Godspeed, future generations.
Well, here's the other thing about going slow. This is hard to put ourselves in the mindset, but what do you think your reaction would be if you grew up, like all you'd ever known, you're born on a spaceship, you're growing up on a spaceship, you're going to school on a spaceship, and to you that's just normal. Until you get to be whatever age it starts to be revealed, or I mean, maybe you're told about this stuff, but it would just be how life is to you. But at some point, you're going to start to think about things a little bit bigger and start to realize the decisions that had been made for you and what you're being asked to do. Probably, I'm thinking early teens, when you're 12 years old, you start to think
when you're ready to rebel
outside of yourself, when you're starting to get ready to rebel.
Yeah.
If you realize that your parents were like NASA mission specialists who were put onto this ship, or not even mission specialists, because you're going to need all kinds of people on these ships. But your parents volunteered, your parents made a decision to go on a spaceship. You were part of the first generation. You're still, like, you can still look out telescopes and see the Earth.
Yeah.
You're still close to home, what your species knows as home. You've never lived there. And your parents are like, hey, well, we're going to die, and you're going to live your whole life and die, and you should have kids and tell them how great this project is. We got to decide this. You didn't decide this. How do you think you would have reacted to that? 12, 13, 14-year-old Ian.
I don't know. I mean, it all... I don't know.
Do you think you'd get super depressed? Would the next generation rebel and start a mutiny and want to turn around and go home? Be like, we could get back there. It's only been 20 years. We could get back. We could be on a planet.
Okay, but first off, you'd have to slow the ship down.
Yes.
Because you'd be traveling too fast to probably turn, right around. You have to slow the ship down.
That's true, but the ship would have that ability because it's got to slow down when it gets to the planet.
Yeah, but it depends. Like, that's the thing. Depending on how fast you're going, like you said, it takes time to slow down.
Yeah.
And then you got to turn.
Yeah.
And then you got to start up again.
Sure.
And I mean, that might happen. I don't know. I don't know. That's so hard of a question to try and answer.
However many psychological tests you put your initial crew through, the next generation is nobody knows unless you decide, like, this is a huge project. We're going to take maybe a few generations to plan the project before we actually send it. What if you sent, this is really crazy because they might do this. If you sent a ship where everyone thinks that there's sort of like a double-blind test, part of a psychological experiment where everyone thinks that they're going for a 1,000-year journey, and you have the parents, the initial crew, go out and live their lives and die, and the children grow up, and meanwhile scientists on Earth are like studying hidden cameras, what these kids are going through, and then like 2 or 3 generations down the road, the autopilot takes over, turns around and comes back, and it's like, well, you were all part of an experiment. We just wanted to see if you'd mutiny. Good thing you all decided that you were fully on board for this test. Now you're going to die on your way back to Earth because this was just a test run. That's a horror movie right there. That's a science fiction horror movie where the twist is the reveal. The whole time you think the main character is like early, but a few generations into
that would be
like the arc that's going to carry humanity through the stars, and then the twist at the end is like, nope, you were just part of a test. We're gonna do that, but it's other heroes will do that. You'll be a footnote.
That's terrible.
I know. And the thing is,
I don't want to think about it.
The thing is, you never know. Because when will the reveal happen? What stage of the test you're in? Maybe when you die, your kids start.
The group that gets there, and they're like, we've made it. And then it's like, welcome back to Earth.
And then there's monkeys.
You land in the zoo.
I guess what we're saying is whatever you send these people with, whatever library of DVDs and culture that... I say DVDs, like it's going to be DVDs. Come on. Whatever...
VHS tapes.
We're going to... Well, beta, really. I mean, if we're going to start over, let's pick the right technology. Let's go Betamax.
Whatever Billy Joel cassettes you send.
Whatever culture you send them with, I think the lesson that we've just learned ourselves is don't send Planet of the Apes. That's another thing. What would you... If you were planning out, okay, we're going to send these people to another star system... What culture do you send them with? I mean, if you're sending a new seed of humanity, you're going to want to start them... Like, it's not just the science you send them with. You want to...
It's so easy now to... We could send them with...
I don't think the question is what...
terabytes of movies, plays, history, like every Canucks game for the last... I don't know. We could pack so much into so little that... I'd say send as much as you can.
I think you could send everything. You can digitize all human knowledge and put it
in text. Yeah.
Put it on. I mean, if you've got a ship with thousands of people, you've got room for everything.
Like this, I mean, this.
But do you want to send everything, or would you want to censor what they have?
Oh,
that's what I'm asking. Do you send them with? Do you send them with the idea that we haven't figured? Like, there's these different religions are at war with each other.
Let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
Do you forbid anyone with ideology you deem to be bad to go on? Like, you send the ship full of people who aren't religious? Do you send the ship with people who aren't, for example, Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Mormon or Scientologist, whatever? I'm so sorry to put Scientology in the same group as this. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Go for it.
Do you say to them, like, well, we need you on the ship. You're clearly, like, you have this list of capabilities. We need you. You fit good in the, but you can't take your holy book. You can't practice your faith.
I think that would be doomed to fail. Yeah. I think the choice is either just send everyone with everything and hope for the best, because that's what's right for humanity, or you don't even send, like, you don't send the potentially destructive ideas. You don't even send them in people's minds. Like, you would have to censor it completely.
That's because then you have what's a bad idea? What's something that might, who knows what people will take to a certain degree?
It's tough though, because I could imagine certain ideas or certain, but like a Mein Kampf kind of thing. If you knew that these things were, I mean, if we could all agree that they're bad ideas, and of course, you and I could say, well, who's to say what's a good idea, what's a bad idea? And most things, there's multiple sides to it. Yeah, right. But you can come up with sort of extreme examples and think these are there's no one is going to make a case that these are good ideas. But if they're bad ideas, but very convincing to people, or they're likely to, like, people in that situation, if a book or an idea or something is likely to cause a mutiny and ruin your entire project, I absolutely am on board with this ideological sort of, let's gamble on the goodness of all humanity and send them with all information and make this a completely open thing. But if that means that you've got to put up with a 20%, even a 2% chance of utter mission failure due to ideological reasons, it's not an easy decision to make. But then, like, what's the point if you're just sending people who you're keeping information from? Like, you'd have to kind of bank on this group being representative of the best of humanity. I don't know. That's a good question that I asked, he said, self-congratulatorily.
Pat yourself on the back. I don't think you can you can't prevent the things that are going to happen from happening.
Wow.
That's deep.
That's deep.
Everybody at home, take note of that. You can quote me. Like, you can't, you might say, well, I don't want to send Mein Kampf because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And you're right, like, you could send it and you don't know when a 14-year-old kid on that ship who's super depressed, and for whatever reason, because kids get depressed because being a teenager sucks.
Yeah.
And they come across Mein Kampf, and for whatever reason, the events in their life, the way their brain is processing reality, everything that's going into them, Mein Kampf goes into their brain and makes them into somebody who can rally people, and who for some reason decides, like, no, we're going to blow up this ship.
Yeah.
Because for whatever crazy reason. I think trying to prevent people from having information and saying, like, we're gonna pick these certain things and that's all you're gonna have, is way more effort and not necessarily going to prevent anything from.
That's true.
Yeah, I think it's better to give them information, because that way you give them Mein Kampf, and then you give them hundreds of years of people saying, like, no, this guy was a dick. Like, he's an idiot. This is stupid for these reasons. He is wrong for these reasons.
You're absolutely right. You've convinced me completely. You're no, honestly, like, I was thinking, like, this is a good question, but
no, it is.
You're 100%.
No, because this would be a debate.
Yeah,
like, I can easily see groups, conservative groups being like, well, we clearly shouldn't send them with any terrorist ideologies. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what does that mean? You're racist and terrible, and screw you.
Yeah.
Clearly, we should send them with the Lord.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah. I think we can all agree, though, that
Xenu, right?
What?
Xenu, right? That's what we're talking about?
Hail Xenu.
Hail Xenu.
I think
our podcast is going to get sued so bad.
Okay, I was gonna. Never mind. I think we can all agree though that we should not send Scientology.
Right. Yeah.
Having just made that grand statement.
Well, also,
look,
I mean,
send everything. Let them piece it out as they go. They're human. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, except
If
Scientology. But the other thing with that is, like we said, there's not going to be a barrier to the amount of information you can send. You can send, a ton of hard drives.
Oh, yeah.
But still, all the writings of L. Ron Hubbard, there's just too much. You can't fit it on. It's just a logistical thing.
Yeah.
I think I wrote too much. I'm sorry, that was dumb. Go ahead. Continue with your actual thing.
No, that was it.
Okay.
We're good. I think we've come to the agreement that we can send everything, or that we should send everything.
Yeah, I think we solved that one we put it in the ground. I have a note about another. We've been talking about kind of deep things and big questions.
I like it.
I do too. I have another one, but I'd like to save that for a little bit. Let's talk about something kind of lighter.
Okay. Do you want to talk about fashion?
I would love to talk about fashion.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. As you know, I'm a bit of a fashion guy. Some people credit me with starting the hobo chic movement a few years ago.
I certainly do.
Yeah. I got this coat at Value Village.
Yeah.
Back in the day. You probably saw me with it back in the day.
This coat that you're wearing?
No, not this coat.
Okay.
Well, I did get this at Value Village. This is Banana Republic, though. I like this.
Uh-huh.
But no, I got this. I got a different coat at Value Village that had, like, I'm pretty sure there were cigarette burns in spots of it, and, like, it was this weird flannelly thing that was, like, really faded.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it being like, oh yeah, that's my coat. I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna look so cool.
Yeah.
And I had super long hair back then.
I remember.
You remember?
Yeah.
And it was gross. It was gross. Everything was gross.
Gross.
And I was overweight, and I had a bunch of acne because I hadn't done that Accutane stuff yet. And I remember, like, thinking, like, I look wonderful. I am amazing right now. Everybody loves me. And then I remember at one point it was raining because Vancouver rains a lot. And, like, I was walking, and, like, I didn't have an umbrella, and I didn't wear a hat, so, like, my hair was all, like, matted down on my face. And I remember looking in the window of, like, a restaurant and seeing my reflection and just being like, oh God, I have to change everything. I immediately got rid of the coat. Like, I think I just went right to the Value Village, just like, take that.
Yeah.
I went and cut my hair, started working out.
I didn't know that.
Eventually got on Accutane so the acne would go away. Like, immediately I was like, this is not a way I need to go.
Yeah.
So anyways, fashion.
Can I say, I love the way that you live your life. Things come, like, you have... I think most people go through similar processes, but for most people, they're not as aware of their transitions, and they happen slowly. And you have, like, these moments of epiphany and clarity like no one I've ever talked to. It's incredible.
Well, I do think a lot about my past and trying to be like, okay, why did this happen and where did this go wrong and everything? And I paint a picture.
I like to look at my life and frequently think, where did it all go wrong?
Where did it go wrong? So back to fashion.
Yes, fashion on our generation ship.
So there's something called the 100-Year Starship.
Yes.
That is a foundation that exists with the goal of, within 100 years, having a starship kind of ready to go interstellar travel.
Cool.
And the goal is not, like, it was started by NASA and I think DARPA.
Okay.
And, like, they gave a grant to kind of start this foundation. The goal was not to build the ship. The goal was to kind of come up with the ideas.
Okay.
It was a way to be like, hey, let's get all our minds together. Let's come up with the...
Sounds like Hyperloop.
Yeah.
We have an initial paper about the concept.
You have to start, and then you bring people
other
together.
People, yeah. Okay.
And the goal was, like, there's a lot of things that we have to figure out in order to do this. Like, this is not, it's not just about the ship. There's so many different aspects to interstellar travel that no one has thought about. This is the first time we're thinking about this.
Yeah.
So let's start this thing. Let's bring all these ideas together. Let's start getting people thinking. And, hopefully over 100 years, we can bring it all together. We can advance the technologies. We can put the right people in touch with the right people and on the right projects and bring it all together. So Dr. Mae, I think it's Dr. Mae Jameson.
Okay.
First African-American woman in space.
Uh-huh.
She runs it. She's the head of it.
Currently?
Currently.
Huh.
She's the leader.
Good for her. Oh, that sounds racist. Let's take two. Let's do that again. And sexist. Oh my God. I'm so sorry.
All right, we'll
put it in the outtakes.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me stop laughing for a second, and then we'll redo it. Okay.
Let's just leave it in. Keep going.
Anyway, okay, so she runs it. And she was talking about it on NPR. And they have these symposiums every year where everyone's invited. Like, we could go and do a paper presentation. Maybe we should go record one of these.
Yeah.
Symposium. Maybe. We'll see.
Is this a 100-Year Starship Symposium or
every year? Yeah, every year down in
than
Texas.
that?
It's
Okay.
100-Year Starship Symposium every year. So
I would love to go.
maybe we'll film it.
Let's do it.
Maybe we'll film a podcast there because I don't understand how this works. So
It's okay, neither do I.
okay. I just talk at the computer and then it talks back at me. So I guess there was something on NPR about it, and Dr. Carl Aspeland, he heard it on NPR, and he is a assistant professor at the University of Rhode Island.
Okay.
And he's designer, and he's also an anthropologist.
Okay.
And he's done a lot of studying on clothing and fashion, like the history of clothing. And so he heard this, and his first thought was like, oh, what are you going to do about clothing? Because that's what he thinks about. What are you going to do on a spaceship when you take everything up with you?
Sure, yeah.
So then he started thinking about that. He contacted Dr. Jameson, and she was like, come to our symposium, come talk to us. So now he's a part of the 100-Year Starship. He's on the board.
I love it.
And he's
cool.
gotten funding to do research on clothing in space. So one of the things he brought up was...
Can I just say that we're talking about the future, but I love this world so much that exists.
I know.
We are living in the future, and it is the best of all possible worlds.
I know. It's wonderful. It's getting better every day.
Oh, my God.
The future is good. It's positive, and our world now is good because it's the future for somebody else.
Yes. And it's so cool that exists. That there's a 100-Year Starship program, and one of the board members is... someone who studies fashion
and design and yeah.
I
know.
Continue.
Okay. One thing he talked about, do you know what they do with clothes on the space station and like in space now?
Do they just toss them out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they take up clothes, they wear like I think khakis and polo shirts and stuff.
Sensible.
Yeah. And they don't change, like they wear them for multiple days because I guess in space you can do that.
Yeah.
And then they toss them.
I do here.
They toss them into... Yeah. I'm doing it right now. I haven't changed in days. They toss them into a little capsule, I think, and it burns up on re-entry.
Okay.
So they don't wash their clothes.
Okay.
They just take them up and burn them.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Okay.
If you're going on a 1,000-year trip,
yeah,
what do you do? I think he figured you need 100 cubic feet for one person's clothing, maybe for life in space.
Okay. Okay. I don't know if that sounds reasonable or not.
I don't know.
That's hard to picture, but
I think he said something like half of a transport.
Did you say like cubic feet?
I think it was cubic feet.
Holy hell. Okay, that would be for a lifetime because that's a lot. Like layers of material stacked on top.
It'd be like half of those transport metal tank.
Hapag-Lloyd.
Yeah. Like half of one of those or something per person.
Yeah, a shipping container.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Shipping container.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like half of one of those or something.
Okay.
Per person.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So first off, how much does that cost to ship up into space?
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Sure.
Secondly, that's per person. How many people are you going to have on your ship?
Mm-hmm.
How much of it's going to be taken up by clothing?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case. And then that doesn't help future generations. That just helps the people you send up now. The reason that I thought of this when you said interstellar travel is because it's so cool that is one of those questions being asked, because when you think of interstellar travel, everyone thinks of the bit what kind of a rocket, how do we go fast, slow, the design of the ship and everything, and they're not thinking no one thinks clothing or entertainment.
Well, we solved that one.
Yeah, well, we solved it. Everything.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about that. We can do a paper on that.
We could
present it.
Good. Our philosophical debate.
Yeah.
But education, medical testing, you need everything in life that we have now, basically.
Yeah.
But how do you put it on a ship?
Yeah.
And the cool thing is that maybe in coming up with a way to deal with clothing in a confined ship, a closed system, kind of like Earth, you can figure out how to do it more sustainably on Earth, which will help us get there, which will help ensure that humanity is in a good state when we get to 100-year Starship.
That's cool. I like that idea that in solving the problem, like if you're considering the generation ship as being a solution to if we mess up our own planet, then in solving that problem, like in creating the solution, this escape pod of humanity, you would eliminate the need for the solution in the first place. That's beautiful to me.
Yeah.
I have a few suggestions for it. Has this person come up with an answer to the question of what do you do about clothing?
No, I mean he just got funding recently to do research on that, so that's what his research is going off into, is to figure that out.
That's awesome.
A few ideas, things I heard, like, is it possible you could project clothing onto people?
Make a simple white jumpsuit and then
just project like clothing onto them.
cool.
Because also you
make flexible screens that you can just change.
Maybe people are just naked and you're able to just, or maybe everyone wears glasses, Google glasses.
Yeah.
Another thing that he talks about that I found really cool is that clothing is not just for protection from the elements, for example. Like, clothing has a personal identity. Like, people wear clothing, certain types of clothing, to project their identity. It has a psychological component.
Sure.
And you could say that maybe it's a factor in a healthy psychology. And it has cultural connections. It has an element of identifying people. People find their own personal identity. So it's not just like, people need to be kept warm while they're on a spaceship. It's, this is an important part to culture, to people's psychology.
Yeah.
So this needs to be factored in and taken care of. So we're all going to run around naked.
I mean, there are people that do that. Yeah. You just send a bunch of nudists up. It's a nudist space colony.
I think we just solved the clothing issue.
So we're banging them out here.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, sorry. So what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I have a few immediate thoughts, and one is, if your ship is big enough, you could have a ridiculously large ship, large enough that you could have farms and biospheres, and
maybe
you could I mean, what happens to our clothes now? They go in a landfill where they decompose and just become part of nature again.
Yeah.
Because of bacteria and microorganisms and all this stuff that goes on in that whole process. You could theoretically replicate those processes and then use the basic molecular ingredients to grow crops and harvest cotton and turn it into brand new. Like, you could have that whole industry.
Spider silk clothing.
Sure. You could have those entire industries right from the ground up. You could have those natural resources being more or less replicated if you have a ridiculously large ship.
Well, yeah, that's assuming you have like a smaller Earth almost, or like something that functions in that same way.
Yeah. Now, the other way is to do it not through replicating nature recycling matter, but to have dematerializers and rematerializers, like a Star Trek replicator kind of thing, where you put in old clothes that are all full of holes and everything, and they get broken down to their basic molecular proteins and that kind of thing, and then those proteins are just reconfigured mechanically into a brand new bolt of silk or cotton or whatever, Kevlar, whatever you're making your clothes out of, and then you can recycle things that way. Yeah,
that's the great thing. That's what, hopefully this type of research can figure out is, well, how do we do it without having to essentially replicate a small Earth?
Yeah.
And like in doing that, then we can be like, well, now we can do that on Earth, so we don't need to grow cotton.
Totally. Yeah.
We can, another idea I heard was, you just cover yourself in like paint or goo or something,
it's
and
like a spray-on clothes.
Yeah, you just spray stuff on.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Maybe we'll come up with clothes that self-healing, like clothes that can self-repair. I mean, they're working on self-repairing polymers and stuff. So if you're not able, unless you have a ship that's mining asteroids along the way, which I can see you're very excited.
Asteroid mining is like my favorite thing.
Okay, just a quick aside. Did you know that the planetary resources just sent up their Arcoid thing?
Yes.
In the SpaceX thing that went to the ISS.
Oh my God. Planetary resources, I've said so many times, it's my favorite thing of the past 10 years.
And that's with Tesla's SpaceX Hyperloop.
Yes. Planetary resources, by far. No, well, not by far, but it edges them all out.
Applebee's
is pretty good.
You got good ribs, I think.
You do. Want to go to Applebee's after this?
Yeah, I kind of do.
All right.
We're going to find an Applebee's. Let's go. You had a point.
Yes.
I would like to hear that point.
Okay. So this is just like a thing that I thought of.
Okay.
it makes sense. It's just not particularly useful. Right now, the vast majority of human history is prehistoric.
It's Flintstones.
It's flint napping. You know what I mean? Like if you were to arbitrarily go back to a random point in human history, the peak of technology is going to be obsidian hand axes.
Yeah.
Right? So from this point now, all of culture, all of technology is like a sliver at the edge of But if we take a long view and think for the whole picture of the human project,
like going into the future as well?
Going into the future as well, from sort of beginning to end. Hopefully, if things go well, we're just starting. We're just barely at the edge of our development as a species.
And this is a glass half full show, so
yes,
we are at the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. And if generation shifts happen, I think if we colonize the galaxy, the chances of the human story continuing indefinitely are, I think, get pretty good. Once you have a few different outposts that are self-sustaining, your chances of surviving more or less forever go way up. So, if we take a really long view, most of human life will be lived off of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how much human life will be lived between star systems.
Traveling?
Yeah. If we end up colonizing the galaxy, most of human life will be lived off of the surface of a planet, far away from a star.
I like that.
And that we are like the odd outliers. Oh, they're one of the ancients that lived on the mother planet. This is again sounding a little Mormon. But we could be like the founders of all civilization right now. A civilization that would look totally alien to us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's...
I don't know where to go with that. I don't know if there's any content in that. It's just a kind of a weird thought that I had.
Well, when you say that, the one thing that jumps out at me is how long before we evolve into a new species.
Totally. And
we stop, like, there's no way that it would happen where, you know, you'd go 200,000 years into the future, whatever, and like, it's still still good old Homo sapiens kicking around. Like, we're gonna get so many different species coming out from just being in different chunks, right? Like, you put a population in isolation for however long.
No matter how many people are on these ships, they're going to be genetic bottlenecks.
Yeah, you're going to get you would get different, like, you know, the ship that went left.
Yeah,
the ship that went
the left space.
Because I still think in left and right. There's no up or down or stupid 3 dimensions.
Yeah,
2 dimensions, left or right.
Just simplify.
Yeah. So the ship that went left at the sun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goes one way. The ship that goes right at the sun goes a different way, and the ship that goes left at the sun lands on a planet where the gravity is like half of Earth's gravity, and they become one thing. The other one goes to a planet that's 1.3 times the Earth's gravity. They become a different thing. They shrink. Mm-hmm. The people on the other one get bigger.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you have like 12-foot people on the one planet and 3-foot people on the other planet. They look completely different. What happens to their organs? What happens to everything? They change. They become different. They will eventually become different species. Like, how can a 3-foot person have sex with a 12-foot person?
Oh, they can do it. There are ways.
I don't think they'd find each other attractive. I don't think that would work.
They might not find each other attractive.
To all people in a tall, short relationship, we're sorry.
Yeah.
So back. So we'll take this back.
Okay.
Take this back.
What if you get to
That's
a point?
Super inspirational. That to me is just a super inspirational. Like, it makes me feel just so happy.
You mean going back to the idea that most of human life might be lived between star systems?
Stars, and we'll spread out like.
Cool.
That's.
What if when we get to the point where, like I mentioned, if we have like full capacity around all habitable planets, we'll have to start making, like, hollowing out planets and making. Well, I was gonna say when we start sending out these generation ships with no destination.
Yeah.
Just, we need a place to live, so here's a spaceship the size of a planet. It's completely self-sustaining. Just go in between galaxies, out in the middle of absolutely nowhere with no destination in mind. This is just where we live now.
Yeah.
Although I had a thought in the middle of saying that, because there's another option, which is a Dyson sphere. Are you familiar with Dyson spheres?
I've heard the term. I don't know what it means.
We're not going to talk about them now because they're a whole episode on their own, but boy, that's cool.
Can you? Or
Yes.
You can't leave me and everyone else wondering what is it. Can you give me the
Yes.
quick 10-second what is a Dyson sphere?
A Dyson sphere, the idea is that you deconstruct the planets in a solar system
Okay.
and use the material to make a whole shell surrounding the star completely.
Yeah.
And we live on the inner surface. The neat tie-in is the person who came up with that, Freeman Dyson, that's why it's a Dyson sphere.
Also made the vacuums.
No.
The hyper vacuums.
No.
Okay.
That's just a coincidence. I think it's a coincidence. Maybe they're related, the Dyson vacuum inventor. I don't know.
Might be.
It's a good question. But Freeman Dyson, the guy who came up with Dyson sphere, also came up with the Orion ship. The nuclear bomb-powered starship. Same guy. Yeah. Freeman Dyson. Unsung, cool science guy.
Is he unsung? I feel I've heard of him.
Well, I think he's underrated. I think he's cooler
I've heard
than
of him, so he's clearly sung.
I think he's cooler than he's given credit for.
I've seen there's some.
He's definitely not unknown. That's true. He's
yeah.
not unknown, but I think he deserves more credit. And yeah, he came up with the Orion spaceship, powered by thousands of nuclear bombs exploding behind it.
It's a good idea.
It's a fascinating idea. It's a weird way to use. I mean, it's out of the box for sure.
Well, we
But
have
they-
so many nukes, we might as well use them.
Yeah, but like no one's ever. It's not an incremental step. It's not like, well, we have the Saturn V rocket that's going to the moon. Let's make a slightly larger one. They go, no, we've got this rocket ship that's as big as a building. Let's not make one as big as a slightly larger building. Let's make one as big as a city. Let's go for it. Like, it's huge. But people were thinking that way in the 60s and in the 50s when it was like, let's go to the moon. And then 10 years later, there we are on the moon. That's the kind of spirit that builds spaceships
What
that
happened
go
to that
to
spirit?
other stars. Should we call that an episode?
I'm happy with our introduction to interstellar travel. Podcast done.
Never seen it quite so clear. When my heart is